Good evening, race fans, and happy Halloween to those of you who celebrate it. Tonight, we are here at the Las Vegas Bullring for a little bit of trick-or-treating for our drivers themselves, the treats being points towards our Season 8 championship rather than candy, but I suppose if you stretch the definition enough, you could consider points towards a win in a championship candy in of itself. Regardless, though, this is the first time in ASRC racing history that we have ever started here at the Bullring. This track comes in at 0.37 miles or zero point 0.6 kilometers in length, which is actually almost identical dimensions to our previous round back at the Lanier Raceway last week. This track was built back in 1985 and it actually hosts weekly pro late model races, so it's a little bit fitting that we finally take our late model stocks here of the ASRC Oval Series to the Bullring. That said, of course, as always, if you want to come race with Attrition Sim Race Campus, be sure to check us out at ASRC Racing on twitter.com or head on down to www.asrcracing.com to join the league. Every Monday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, we host the Road Series with GT3 cars that have a split season of 50-minute long endurance races and dual 25-minute long races for sprint races. Then at 9 p.m. Eastern, we have the Oval Series, which you're seeing right now, 101 lap or 101 mile late model races. Then finally, on Tuesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern, we host the Dirt Series featuring the Pro Late Model. Of course, we are on our 7th round out of 12 for all of our series, but still, everyone is welcome to join whenever they would like. The only requirement is to be a clean and respectful driver. That said, looks like qualifying is just about in the books here tonight. So how about we head down trackside and take a quick look at our starting lineup for our race tonight, presented by the Majors Garage and Sim Racer Hub. Bit of a small field here this evening. Most of our drivers are out celebrating the holiday with their families, which is completely understandable. We do have 4 drop weeks here in the ASRC Oval Series, so plenty of drivers willing to expend one of their drops here for celebrating the holidays. But that said, starting out on pole here tonight, gonna be the number 15 of Garrett Streets. To his outside, gonna be the 99 of Tyler McCrae. Third place gonna go back to Brian Sabelski. And finally, rounding out the 4-car field here tonight, gonna be Mr. Travis Sukup back in that number 45 machine. And while this is a bit of a smaller field from what we normally see here with the Oval Series, I think it will still be a pretty exciting one, because believe it or not, we have had a different winner every single race this season, and 3 of the 4 drivers here tonight, Tyler McCrae, Garrett Streets, and Brian Sabelski, are all drivers that have picked up a win this season, so 3 drivers here tonight looking to try and pick up their second win of the season and be the first driver of the season to have multiple wins under their belt. And finally, 1 driver going to be looking to try and claim his first win of the season and expand the roster of drivers that have won to 7. As usual, we will have 101 laps up on the board here tonight. The pace car is off, and we are getting ready to go green flag racing here at the Las Vegas Bullring. Little bit of a difficult start there on the outside line, but it does look like they get it going fairly early on. 2x2 down into turn number 1, and we are away. Garrett Streets off to a fairly handy lead with these 4 cars still all under a blanket, and Street's going to actually drift up high out of turn number 4, and that's going to allow McRae to take the lead going on into turn number 1. Already that's going to be a lead change, and 2 drivers here having picked up a bonus point for leading a lap. Gonna have to see if Sabelski and Sukup have anything to offer for these 2 drivers. I'd imagine with such a small field, everyone is going to be vying to try and collect as many bonus points as they can this race. Of course, here in the Oval Series, we have a bonus point for getting no incidents, a bonus point for leading a lap, and a bonus point for leading the most laps. So all these drivers definitely going to be vying to try and collect as many bonus points as they can. Garrett Streets, however, going to be our new race leader as we come across lap number 5, going to be capitalizing on the same mistake made by McRae that he made earlier in this race, but McRae is going to be able to do the crossover maneuver on him. Side by side across the line, Streets is going to be scored as the leader for that lap, but he is stuck up on the high line. That is not where that number 15 machine wants to be. Sabelski gonna drift up high just a little bit that time by. Sukup trying to see if he can't wedge his way under there, but it's not going to work. Streets and McRae passing each other again. These 2 drivers have been handing the baton back between one another every single corner. Streets is going to be scored as the leader this time by only 8 laps in the books, and these drivers are starting to race like there's only 8 left to go. Sukup and Sabelski both trying to get into and maintain that podium position. That said, Sukup's going to scrape the wall a little bit in at that 45. Sukup is a bit of the underdog driver here tonight. Sukup, the only driver in this field to have not picked up a win this season. That said, he did finish on the podium last week in a photo finish with Garrett Street, so Sukup definitely looking to try and turn another podium into another win. And I'll tell you what, race fans, this championship, 7 weeks in, and it is still pretty wide open right now. Currently, Brian Sabelski in that number 85 NTO machine is our points leader with 126 points. But that said, he only has 4 points of leeway between himself and Streets. And with Streets winning this race, that could actually bump him back up to the top of the standings board here tonight if he manages to get the win. Behind them, it is about 60-point deficit from Streets to McRae. McRae only making his 3rd start of the season, so McRae has not had a lot of time to pick up points, but McRae was our race winner last race, so all things considered, he is very much in the running still tonight, especially with those 4 drop weeks, so only everyone's top 8 finishes are counted in the Oval Series, and considering that this is McRae's 3rd start, you can do the math. That means that he has missed 3 races, so that's 3 drop weeks. If he manages to make it to every race remaining this season, McRae could very much be in contestants for the championship here tonight. And finally, behind McRae is Sukup, who has also not had much opportunity to make starts here this season. I believe this is Sukup's 2nd start of the season. Sukup is back in 12th place in the standings, just 5 points behind McRae. So 2 very close battles here tonight in terms of points, with Sabelski and Streets only 4 points apart from each other, and McRae and Sukup only 5 points away from each other. So even with only 4 drivers in the field tonight, there are still definitely stories to be told about these late model stock drivers. Sukup going to get a little bit of a run off the corner there. It does look like he's doing a bit better than Sabelski on his corner entry, but losing a little bit of momentum on corner exit. That said, He had the gap down to almost 0.2 of a second, but he did have to check up just a little bit. You can definitely see the difference in corner entry between the 85 and 45, definitely taking two different lines into these corners, but Cybelski managing to hold on about 0.3 of a second between himself and Sukup every time by. Currently, Streets, our race leader, has set the fastest lap of the race with a 15.46, but in terms of current lap times, every single driver is within 1/10 of a second of each other. McRae and Streets actually set identical times that time by, with Cybelski and Sukup incredibly close to each other as well, only about 0.004 of a second separating these drivers' lap times. Cybelski starting to get a bit of pressure from behind from Sukup. Sukup really closing the gap there and maybe considering using a little bit of that bumper. We are 25 laps into this race. That's going to be a quarter of the race down just like that. The clock is definitely starting to tick for these drivers. The 45 is going to scrape the wall, and that is going to cost him a little bit of his momentum. Despite what we all saw back at Martinsville in the NASCAR Cup Series yesterday, riding along the wall, definitely not the best maneuver you should be making unless you are in the absolute perfect circumstances on the absolute most dire of moments, which, needless to say, only 28 laps in of a 100-lap race is not exactly what I would describe as a dire moment. But things evening out a little bit. Garrett Street's currently having the biggest gap between any other car in the field, with about 0.6 of a second than every other car on track. Fairly evenly spaced. Gonna call that about 0.3 of a second between the 99 and 85, and then 0.3 of a second between the 85 and 45. So these three drivers all battling it out to try and pick up as many points as they can, but you have to start and wonder, are these drivers going to try and work together so they can catch back up to Streets, or are they just going to battle it out to be on the podium? Cybelski having a little bit of trouble going into turn 3 there. That's almost going to allow Sukup to get the pass, but he is going to end up having to check up just a little bit. Sukup definitely getting a much better corner entry than the other drivers, but it's possible that that momentum is actually hurting him, because it looks like he's losing all of that speed on corner exit, which means probably having to slow that 45 down more than the other cars to get it to rotate. So bit of a fine balancing act to get these cars around this 3/8 of a mile bullring, literally. And it looks like everyone has a little bit of a different strategy of how they're going to go about it. There is an extra set of tires here for these late model drivers, but I really do not think that we are going to see any takers here tonight. On the incredibly small chance that we have a caution, I could maybe see some of these drivers taking right side tires, but the chances of that are incredibly slim. And on top of that, fuel, I don't believe, is going to be an issue, because this is one of the smallest tracks on our schedule. Should be smaller than Oxford Plains if I remember correctly, and I know we have enough fuel to go the full 101 laps around Oxford Plains. A little bit of Nerf bar contact between the 85 and 99 there. Actually call that bumper contact. Believe it or not, these are not tour modified cars. They're not open wheels. They don't have Nerf bars on them. Maybe, just maybe, I've been watching a little bit too much of modified racing lately, but, you know, maybe there's a division out there somewhere that puts Nerf bars on their late models. I think that would be pretty funny to see. We should start doing that. They should hire me as a race director. I know what I'm doing. Speaking of race control, though, Garrett Streets was losing a lot of time coming down the front stretch there. I'm not quite sure what happened to him in that 15 machine. He's quickly built that gap back up, but for about a single straightaway there, McRae was right on Street's bumper. I'm not too certain what was the cause of that, but whatever it was, it looks like that 15 machine has got it back under control. Currently, Streets and McRae, the only two drivers to have led a lap this race, so those two drivers are going to be the only ones picking up bonus points so far. But there is still definitely time for Sabelski or Sukup to get up there and vie for those points. In the grand scheme of things, 1 point doesn't always sound like a lot, especially when our championship leader, Mr. Brian Sabelski, currently has 126 points accrued right now, but you gotta consider the difference between first and second right now is only 4 points, so very much every point counts for these drivers, and even this late into the season, it's getting especially important. Garrett Street's starting to have to look in his mirror just a little bit, because, oh boy, the rest of the field is coming. Everyone now at an almost equal gap between one another. McRae going to go up high a little bit and have to slow down. The same with Sukup. Sukup going a bit high on corner entry there, going to spread the field out a little bit, but I'll tell you what, race fans, these four cars are all incredibly competitive with one another. None of them has fallen away from the pack. They've all been going at it for the past 46 laps non-stop, and McRae is going to take the lead again in that number 99 late model. Street's going to drift it up high, and Sabelski's going to get by him as well. Sabelski now enjoying being in second place for the first time this race. Sukup going to get past him as well. Street's all the way back to the back after leading the most laps so far this race. Now the lead's going to be between McRae and Sabelski. If Sabelski manages to get around McRae, he's going to also be picking up some bonus points here tonight, which would definitely help him keep that very small lead that he has in the point standing over Streets. But right now it's all just a matter of getting around that number 99, because that's not going to be any easy feat for Sabelski, especially after McRae picked up the win last week at the Lanier Raceway. That said, Sabelski running a bit of a lower line down the straights, really trying to find a way to wedge the nose of that 95 up under McRae's late model, but a little bit of trouble there actually. Sabelski getting it down on the apron, going to kill some of his momentum and allow Sukup to really close up behind him, but for now everyone is playing nice. We've officially just crossed the halfway point of this race, so I'd imagine drivers going to start being a little bit less patient with each other. And you can see it right there, the 45 sending in it real deep, and the 15 going in right behind him without any hesitation. Both did have to end up checking up for the 85 because they both saw that that move was not exactly going to work. You can see it again there, the 45 having a pretty good run out of the corner, but having to let it all go just to make sure he doesn't make contact with the rear end of the 85. As these laps tick down, you might start to see drivers a little bit less hesitant to apply the bumper to their adversaries if they deem necessary. It does not seem like fuel is going to be an issue tonight. Of course, I could absolutely eat my words, and the 45 is going to scrape the wall there a little bit. So these cars should be good to just duke it out for the remaining 45 laps. But we will have to see, because I'd imagine that some of these drivers are going to be using up their tires just a little bit. Again, the 45 getting a really good run off the corner and having to slow up to not make contact with Sabelski. We will have to see how long his patience lasts, because if I were Sukup, if I were the one underdog driver in this race that has not picked up a win yet, I would be doing everything I can to try and make the most out of this smaller field here tonight. And you see it there again, the 45 getting a good run off the corner and having to slam on the brakes. I'd almost say he's maybe slamming on the brakes a little bit too hard and can get a bit of a bump from behind from Streets there. Streets still having led the most laps so far this race, looking to try and get back up there, if not in the lead, then at least back on the podium. But that's just how short track racing could be. He made one little mistake, and that took him from first all the way back to the back of this field. But that just goes to show as well that anything could happen in these next 40 laps. Sukup going up high a little bit. Street's going to try and get down low. Street's going to get the nose in. Sukup going to go way up high in the corner there, and that's going to allow Streets to at least get himself back onto the podium. But he still has a second of deficit to make up if he wants to try and vie the lead back from McRae, which is definitely going to be no small task. That time by McRae, no, Sabelski actually set the fastest lap of the race with a 15.71. The other drivers setting a 7.7, 8.2, and 9.6. So Sukup looks like he is a little bit off the pace here tonight. Last time by about a full tenth of a second off the pace of the other drivers, and you can actually see a little tiny bit of right side damage to that number 45, so it looks like scraping that wall once or twice might have caused a little bit of aerodynamic damage to that car. Because yeah, he is definitely slowing down in terms of lap time here. We'll have to keep an eye on him and see if he can't make something work with that damaged car. 66 laps down in the book, and Sukup's going to get back around Streets. Streets having a bit of difficulty out of the corner there, it looks like. Let's see if actually we can't get a quick look back at what happened to Streets there. Streets way up high through the corner. Looks like it's possible he just overdrove it and had to slam on the brakes to not make contact with the wall, but that's going to send Streets almost a full second behind Sukup and 3 seconds behind the leader. Definitely unfortunate for the driver of that number 15. I'm not seeing any body damage on it though, so I'm not entirely sure what happened unless he just drove it in too hard. Back up in the front though, currently looking at the battle for the lead. This is by far the closest battle on the speedway here between the 88 or the 85 and the 99. Sabelski, of course, being the driver of that number 85 NTO entry, which is a parody of a, I believe, Xfinity Series car from the 80s that was NWO, but it's now changed to NTO for the branding of his Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Nihon Tiger. He streams pretty much all of his races here with ASRC, as well as a bit of modded Minecraft, so if any of that sounds interesting to you, definitely be sure to check out twitch.tv/Nihon Tiger. Speaking of the Nihon Tiger himself, how about we take a bit of a ride on board with our driver of the number 85 car. Currently looking at our second place driver, trying to figure out any sort of way that he can get around our race leader of McRae. McRae was our winner back last race at the Lanier Raceway, where Sabelski got a 4th place finish, so just shy of the podium, and now Sabelski trying to do everything that he can to pick up a race win here tonight. Sabelski is a 3-time champion here with the ASRC Oval Series, but he is not a champion in the late models. He picked up his championships back in the street stocks, and then after that the tour modifieds. And last season he actually was in very close contention for picking up the title, but unfortunately he was not able to attend the championship race and it was after everyone's drop weeks had been expended, so unfortunate for the driver of the 85. He definitely could have had what it takes to pick up the championship last season, but real life responsibilities got in the way of that. And now he is here tonight with 25 laps to go, trying to pick up all the points that he can muster to take the title in a couple of weeks. Looking back at the back of the field, it looks like Sukup had a bit of an issue, and Streets managed to get back around him. Sukup setting much slower times than Streets, so it looks like Sukup possibly might have just used up those iRacing branded tires. This track can be definitely very demanding on them if you don't treat them right, but realistically speaking, that could be said for most of the small Bullring tracks that we visit. So definitely gonna have to keep an eye on that 45. There's still always the potential for a caution to come out, especially with how hard these leaders are battling, so you never know. Tire strategy could come into play here. Pit stops could potentially come into play. There's a whole lot of what-ifs that still remain to be answered, and let's be real here, race fans. We've found out plenty of times since we've started broadcasting this league that you never know what's going to happen, and a race is never over till it's over. We've had plenty of freak accidents happen to drivers within the last 4, 3, maybe even final laps here at these races, so it's good practice not to settle your debts until after the checkered flag flies, because you never know what might just happen. 18 to go now as McRae crosses the stripe. Sabelski still trying to pick up his first lap red of the race for that bonus point. Trying to do everything in his power to find a way around McRae, but McRae is just setting blazing times around the speedway. Looking at our lap times, Sabelski was actually slightly faster that time by, but only by 0.04 of a second, so a very, very tiny amount. Ultimately, that does all add up, but with only 16 left to go, it's a big question of if it's going to be enough. Sabelski going a bit higher on his corner entry there. It looks like he's arcing it just a little bit, doing a bit of a late apex. It does seem like he's going into the corner higher up than McRae is. Sabelski getting actually a little bit loose there in turn number 3. Looks like there was a bit of sideways for that 85. You can see the brake rotors glowing on that car, though. He's really trying to do everything in his power to get that car to rotate. Even saw him down on the apron just a little bit last time by. I said it looks like he may have had a little bit of an issue because he has lost a whole lot of time on McRae in just a matter of about 2 laps. Starting to gain that time back just a little bit, but will it be enough? 12 laps to go here. Clock is ticking. Gonna ride on board actually with the number 99 car if we can. Yep, riding on the rear bumper cam of our race leader of Tyler McRae. You can see Sabelski just behind him, really trying to do anything that he can muster to get around this number 99, and you could hear the tires squealing a bit there. It sounds like McRae might have gotten a little bit loose through that corner, but not enough for Sabelski to catch up. And of course, in the top right corner of the screen, you can see the lights of the Las Vegas Motor Speedway over there. The Bullring at Las Vegas Motor Speedway has its name for a reason. It is quite literally in the shadow of the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. 8 to go now. Clock is ticking for Sabelski. About half a second of difference between these two late model stock cars. If they're going to make something happen, he needs to do it now, but that time by, he set a slower lap than McRae. So it's really going to be a bit of a tall task for Sabelski to make up this half-second deficit and get around our race leader. 6 to go now. Just 24 more corners for McRae. Make that more like 22 now that we're down on the backstretch. McRae just has to hold on for a little bit longer, and he could be the first driver of the season to get a second win under his belt. Sabelski closing in the gap just a bit, got it down to about 0.35 of a second, 4 to go, but Sabelski is catching. Sabelski could do this if everything plays out in his favor, but that, like I said, is an incredibly big if. Make it 3 to go now. These drivers are setting 15-second lap times, so lap traffic is not going to play a factor here. It is just going to be between these two drivers and the machines they're in, who took better care of their tires, who's taking the better racing line. 2 to go now. If Sabelski is going to do this, he has to do it now. Coming back around out of turn 4, the white flag is up in the air. Sabelski is going to get a little bit loose through the corner. Just 4 more corners for McRae to pick up the win. Going into 3. Sabelski sending it in deep, but it's not going to be enough. McRae is your first driver to pick up 2 wins this season. A bit further back, coming around the corner, Streets in that number 15, going to be the driver that rounds out our podium here tonight. Looking down at our race winner, that number 99 of Tyler McRae. Let's see what he can do for us in terms of burnout here tonight. Pulling it down to the flag stand, going a little bit past the winner's circle. Are we going to get a burnout? I believe in you, Tyler. You can do it. Nope. No burnouts tonight here, race fans. But that said, don't go anywhere. We will be back in just a moment with interviews with our top 3 finishers. All right, race fans, and we are back starting off talking to our race winner here tonight, who is now the first driver of season 8 to pick up a second win under his belt, and he's going to do it back to back in just his third start of the season. How are you feeling, Tyler?
Feeling pretty good. I think I kind of stole that one tonight.
Well, you had a pretty fast race car here tonight. You were setting the fastest laps of any driver in the field for I'd say at least the last 20 to 30 laps. So you definitely had speed under that number 99 machine, and I wouldn't exactly call it stealing when you led a fairly considerable amount of laps. So don't discredit yourself. You had a pretty good run here tonight.
Yeah, I'm proud of my setup we worked on. I didn't think it was that good in the long run because in practice it wasn't showing me that, and I made a few little adjustments at the end after qualifying to try something out. But Garrett was fast in qualifying, and Brian was really fast in practice. I thought we were gonna have our work cut out for us. And then racing back and forth with them, I was just having some fun, thinking my setup was going to give away soon. And then I swore Brian was going to get me at the end. He was so close to doing it, he just couldn't time it right, I think. But it was a fun time. It was a fun race.
Yeah, you all put on a heck of a show, and I think certainly reminded everyone watching here at home what a bit of a good old fashioned grassroots race is like. Um, I think coming into this race, you were back in the 10th position in the championship standing, so this definitely should bump you up a bit because you only had about a 7 point deficit between yourself and all the way up to sixth. So this win definitely going to help you out here tonight and hopefully give you a bit of a boost heading into Southern National next week. You got any particular thoughts on what that track's going to be doing for y'all?
Um, yeah, I got a good setup already built for there, so I'm pretty excited for that. If that's where we're going. Um, and Sukup does real good there too. Yeah, he's my teammate, so we kind of work on setups together. So it'll be a fun race, but everybody's probably going to be pretty decent. It's going to be a close race all around, I think. You might see a few cautions there, too.
Well, you never know. After all, the Bullring is generally a track known for a whole lot of hard bumping racing, and y'all managed to run this one caution free, and then we ended up at a bigger track than this back in North Wilkesboro with 9. So at this rate, I've just thrown all my expectations out the window for this season, and I'm just gonna be here race by race, not knowing what to expect out of y'all anymore.
Yeah, just like my last week, Sukup should have won the race, and he made a pit road mistake. And, like this week, I didn't think my setup was going to hold up. So it's weird. And I'm excited about next week's race. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm certainly looking forward to it, but before we send you off for tonight, the microphone is yours, Mr. McRae. Is there anyone you'd like to thank for being the first driver to pick up multiple wins this season?
Yeah, I want to thank the league, the ASRC. I mean, them guys have been racing for a good while. I took a little break from them, but they're still putting in a lot of work, and I appreciate them. The guys in the race, racing clean, that was fun, and then dropping bombs racing, with Suka up and some of the other guys that I've run with in our other races. They put a lot of work in together, and we try to have a good time doing it. So, just want to give them a shout out too.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out. It's always a blast to see y'all race, and I look forward to seeing what you have hidden up your sleeve for Southern National.
Well, I appreciate you. Happy Halloween now.
You too. And now jumping around just a little bit because we have not gotten our second place finisher of Mr. Brian Zabelski to pick up the radio. So we're going to be jumping straight down to third place here tonight. Garrett Streets, I'm talking to you again. How'd that happen?
We were pretty fast, qualified on the pole, which is really great. Um, Battled there with Tyler at the beginning and swapped back and forth. That was a lot of fun. Uh, just kind of calculated the fuel strategy wrong a little bit, and I've never raced here before, and this is my first time. Kind of missed it. Then had some hardware issues about halfway through, and then was just pushing too hard and cooked off the tires. But that's how she goes sometimes. So overall, pretty fun race. It's a shame that we didn't have a bigger field, but had some heavy hitters in the field tonight. So we'll head on to Southern National next week and see what happens.
Yeah, a combination of it being a holiday for most of the drivers in the league, on top of being one of the probably less populated tracks on the service, can be a bit of a dangerous combination. But despite that, y'all all still put on a heck of a race here tonight. And well, do you have any particular thoughts or concerns heading into Southern National next week?
Not really. We narrowed up the points gap last week. We'll see what happens with this week. Might end up being a drop, but we'll just keep trying to hunt Brian. He's having a great season. Tyler's second win, first one to get duplicate wins on the year, and just a lot of people battling for the top spot. And we'll see what we can do, and hopefully make a play at it. So
Sounds like a pretty solid plan to me, but before we send you off here tonight, the microphone is going to be all yours here tonight. Is there anyone you'd like to thank for getting back up here in the booth yet again on the podium?
I just want to send a shout out to my girlfriend Morgan again. She's watching. She always watches, cheers me on. I appreciate it. Shout out to you, Aiden, for broadcasting, and all the guys at ASRC for putting the thing on. It's a great time every week. So glad to be here.
Well, it's great to have you, and I certainly look forward to seeing you all next week. Well, race fans, I am going to give Mr. Sabelski another little bit to see if we can't call him up. And if not, then I'm sure we'll have a chance to talk to him again later this season. But I will give him a quick little poke on social media to see if we can't get him to pick up the radio. But if we can't, we can't. We will see what happens. If my math is right, Sabelski should still be leading. Yeah, Sabelski is still going to be leading the points championship coming out of this race. Streets should still be in second. I can't see any way that even with another win, McRae would catch up to our 2 points leaders. So not too much has changed in terms of points, except for the drivers that weren't able to attend this race. So either way, more points picked up for all of these drivers, and definitely going to be even further narrowed as we progress later in the season and head into Southern National next week. That said, it looks like we are not going to get Mr. Sabelski to pick up the radio for an interview here tonight, so unfortunate that we were unable to hear from the driver of the 85, but like I said, I'm sure there is going to be opportunity to hear from him again this season. Sabelski has been definitely a very dominant driver this season, so we may just be seeing him at Southern National next week. But before we call it quits for the evening here tonight, let's take a quick look down at our race results heading out of the Bullring at Las Vegas. Picking up the win here tonight for the Droppin' Bombs racing team, going to be the number 99 of Tyler McRae, picking up his second win of the season and the first driver of the season to actually pick up 2 wins. Second place going to go back to Brian Sabelski in that number 85 machine, who was coming close to giving McRae a run for his money, but he just could not make that last couple of tenths in the end of the race. Back in third place, going to go back to Garrett Streets in the number 15 machine. And finally, rounding out our field here tonight, going to be the number 45 of Travis Sukup. So a bit of a smaller field here tonight, and certainly a bit of a faster race, but it was definitely still a fun one here tonight. And next week, heading into a track that is free on the iRacing.com platform, along with it not being a holiday, I would imagine that Southern National is going to bring us a bit of a pretty hectic race. I can say with certainty that back when I was a driver here in Attrition, before I started doing broadcasts for them, Southern National was always a track that always kept you on your toes, and you really never knew what was going to be around that next corner. So, until further ado, thank you all for tuning in, race fans, and I will see you all same day, same time next week at the Southern National Motorsports Park. Have a good evening, race fans, and happy Halloween.